Okay, guys, and thanks again for checking this out. So basically, we're going to be talking a lot about World Machine today. I'm going to show you guys my usage for it, kind of how I use it in production and do different things with it. So basically, what is World Machine? World Machine is essentially a fractal generator. It allows you to use a bunch of really basic, well, I wouldn't say basic, but really simple noise settings, erosion settings, and you basically get to spit out height maps, geometry, flow maps, elevation maps, slope maps, all kinds of different things that you can use to texture and make really large vistas for games or for your map paintings or for pretty much anything really. It has a ton of power, and it has a lot of power because of a number of the fractal generators and stuff that we have here. This is a different part of the node of this little graph system here. You'll see me jumping back and forth a lot between this. I'm basically at any point in the node system here, you can jump in and you can preview what the node is doing. This is a Perlin node. And if we come over here, it's an advanced Perlin. We have really basic settings. Now, truth be told, if you go on to the World Machine website, I'll actually pull that up for you, and you go to their learning section here, you can see a number of different options, or a number of the more commonly used nodes that you would be using inside of World Machine. And if we click, say, on Advanced Perlin, this will give you the corresponding information that you would need to see in here. Some of this stuff is a little abstract, to be honest. So, it'll tell you what the scale size is, what everything essentially does in here. Now, the way I tend to use it is I tend to basically play around with the sliders, to be honest with you. That's the best way I've found to learn this. Sitting through a bunch of the stuff and reading a bunch of the documentation is kind of a pain in the ass for me. I tend to fall asleep. So I'm not going to suggest that you do that either. The primary features and stuff, once we're actually going to go through and build a whole network and a whole node, I just wanted to kind of walk you through this. The primary stuff that I tend to play around with here is your feature scale, your elevation center, your steepness, and occasionally the octaves. But we'll dive into that a little bit later. Another super commonly used thing inside of World Machine is going to be the erosion. The erosion is actually what does just that. It's what erodes the surface. It gives you this kind of classic World Machine look that, truth be told, is kind of a huge pain in the you-know-what to try and sculpt. Let's see if I can actually go back in here. We'll actually look at it. Here we go. Just trying to get this just a little bit more organized. Alright. So again, at this point, this is an overlay view. We'll be using this a lot to basically allow us to see a more realized version of what the terrain's going to look like. So we can actually go in, we can change the colors and whatnot. But if you can, I'm going to see if I can put this back to the default here. So we can actually just, oops, where's the combiner? There's the colorizer right here. The erosion's going into that. It's just taking a straight combine here. Let's just reroute that to there. And right now, all this is just doing is it's just adjusting the gradients here. And when I do these builds, by the way, because I'm going to have to rebuild this. This is the low-res representation of the terrain. I'm not going to make you guys sit here and watch this. There's a number of things that can bog down your when you go to create these terrains, and we'll talk about probably the biggest one, which is the resolution of the terrain. And the resolution for this guy is pretty large, about 4096. There's an extra pixel bleed here that they do. I'm assuming they do it for tiling purposes or to give a little extra bleed room, but we'll talk about that a little later as well. So right now I'm going to build this, fire this off, pause the video, and we'll look at the quick little terrain difference here. And as you can see, we got all this little noisy features here, and we have all these really nice flow maps and that kind of stuff. Now, as you're starting to hopefully see here, as I zoom in here, I mean, we're getting information. World Machine is really useful for kind of broader stroke assets. Once you start getting into the trying to combine the macro and the micro stuff, and World Machine doesn't really work too well. Typically, you use a program like View to generate smaller fractals, or you're going to sculpt on some stuff, which is pretty much what we're going to be doing for this. So let's jump in and let's actually start in a new terrain here. So I'm just going to go File, New. That's fine, whatever. Abort that. Okay. So this is what World Machine is going to look like on startup. Okay. And if we hit this green button, this is going to build the entire thing. If we hit this yellow button, it's only going to build up to a current device. So if I just say, hey, build that, it's only going to build up to the terrace part. It's not actually going to build the height output. Not that it really makes much of a difference for this. There's only 2 nodes, but when the chains get really big, it can be kind of useful to know that. Okay, and we're obviously looking at a smaller terrain. We'll look at the terrain size here. We're looking at a 512, well, essentially 512 version of it. Now, let's jump over here into the node graph here, and let's double-click on Advanced Perlin. Okay. Now, this is, again, you're essentially scaling a fractal here. You're not generating terrain. This is all fractals. These are all height maps and that kind of thing. It's not. It's all procedural. So what that basically allows you to do is allows you to get really good stuff from the top-down projection. For you Maya guys, it means it's Y-down projection. If for you Max guys, it's Z-up. But what that means is there's certain things that you cannot do or you have a really hard time doing, and that's particularly if you want to have stuff that cuts horizontally into the surface. It's really hard to do with World Machine because it's just a displacement. It's just pushes it straight up or pushes it straight down. So that's one of the reasons why, for me, I do a lot of combinational things with sculpting just with sculpting in World Machine. This next basic node that you're going to have here is your terrace. Double click that. Terraces are exactly that. They're going to give you these, essentially these steps in the surface. Okay, and we'll lower it down so it looks terrible so you can actually see it. We're just going to build everything. Jump back over here. Okay. So again, this is really good for doing like canyon-esque, like Grand Canyon stuff. Now at any point, as you're going through this and you're like, well, I want to control the height at a certain level. The overall height is kind of controlled by these 2 nodes here. You have your elevation and your center node. There's also, if we click under here, we actually have a full height lock here. So I'm going to push this down to 2. Okay, and that's essentially going to clamp everything. It's going to push it right back down. Okay. It cut most of it off, so put it back up to 8. Oop. We don't want to do that. That's why I took it down so far. And we'll put that back up at 8. Okay, it's just literally cutting down this tile here. This one of these, yeah, this is the zoom extents tile. Okay, this is essentially the infinite fractal that is making your terrain. And again, if you zoom in, right, you get pretty close, it'll make new detail. Okay. All right. Let's keep going with this. Here we go. Take that there. Put this here. Put the terrace here. Okay. Now I want you to pay attention. We're not going to go through all of these input nodes, but as you can see, if I click on Advanced Perlin here, I have a number of inputs. Okay. And all of these inputs are going to. Did I close it down? No, I didn't. All these inputs are going to control. You can basically run different math parameters in here. You can run sines, cosines, pretty much anything that you really want into these nodes. Do I go that in depth with it? No. But you can if you want. I just don't really need to. Alright, look at my notes here. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the interface some more here. The first thing that you're going to find is you have a favorites tab, and these are primarily like the more commonly used tabs inside a World Machine. Um, so you have here, you have your layout generator, you have your advanced Perlin. You don't really use color generator too much. You have your overlay view, which is what you combine color and height maps to kind of see the terrain. You have your height output. You have your bitmap output. So height map output. It's going to be your floating point map for your displacement. Bitmaps, that's your normal maps, light maps, color maps, edge maps, those kind of or channel maps, those kind of things. Choosers, kind of like your if-then statements. These combiners, just like a standard like add, multiply, average, that kind of function. Clamp is just that. It clamps a certain range in the height field. And erosion is just that. It's erosion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just build out really quickly a really basic terrain generator, because I want to show you guys the selectors and kind of how useful the selectors actually are. The selectors are basically what you're going to use to call out certain features. It makes it really useful when you need to start building out your channel maps for texturing. Let's go through and do that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this layout generator node here, drop that in here. Okay, this layout generator, as you can see, has nothing in it. So let's double click in it and see what it brings up. I'm going to use my middle mouse button. I'm going to zoom out. My right mouse button will allow me to pan. And if I click on polygon and I click with the left mouse button, I can draw out polygon. Okay. And right now I'm just clicking points. It didn't do anything because I have to actually, I have to hold them down when I do that. Come back in here. Okay, and then you can just draw out your shape. So just click, drag out, and drop. Okay. So I actually had World Machine kind of lock up on me there, so let's do this again. Just click New Layout, and we'll grab our polygon tool. Click, hold, and that's our little shape. Now again, we can go kind of crazy with it as well. If I just select this and I want to delete it, you just delete it. Kind of come in, get something like this. Okay. Now, some things to look at here. We have this little preview on the side here. If we click, left click and drag on this, we kind of move our light around. We can rotate it. Middle mouse button, click that down. You can kind of zoom in and out. Now what you can see here is the extents are actually going outside of our world boundary. Okay. We can alter that. Let's not alter that for now. Let's actually alter the polygon. Let's right click on this. Let's go edit shape properties. This is the tab. We can adjust the fall off curve here. Or sorry, not that one. We want to adjust the fall off distance. It's how far off it's going to fall off. We can adjust the default height, right? Now, if we really want, we can come in here and we can also scale this shape down. So it's pretty narrow. We'll go a little wider, something like that. Just adjust the height. Let's push that fall off a little bit back out, something like that. Let's go under Edit. This is the profile of the shape, right? And you just click these points here and you can move them around. And you get pretty detailed with this if you want. For this, I'm just going to accept that. Alright, for some reason, this used to add a noise over it. For whatever reason, it's not doing it right now, but that's okay, because we're going to break it up anyway. Now, let's close this guy down. Okay, so now that we have this layout, we can add another object into this, and just literally add another box. Okay, and control, grab that guy, come here. Oopsie, where select device is not current in layout. Yeah, I know that. and we're back for the second time. I've had to close down like 90 apps on my computer, so hopefully this doesn't crash anymore. So I just rebuilt the layout. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, so as I was saying, we can go in and we can go back in and adjust the shapes. You can see the cursor here will change colors, right? So you can move them. Now, if we want to commit it, we basically hit the space bar. It just jumps back over to the overview bar. We can go back into the layout tab, do the same thing. So let me get this to activate here. So you see how it's kind of flashing right now. If I click on this guy, it's a little hard to do this, so bear with me on this. Come on, give me the damn thing, Jesus. So when we right click on this, we can basically control the height. Let me rotate around here of some of these points. We should be able to. What the hell is it doing? So if we enter the precise, we can actually go in and manually type it, but for some reason it is not letting me. How weird. That should be allowing me to actually just take the vertice and drop it straight down. That's what happens when you update a software right before you decide to go and do a demo. Okay. Alright. Do that back into here. Put that into here. I'm a little concerned about why that's not actually showing the layout correctly. Time to restart. Alright, so here we go. Go back into the layout generator here. For some reason I put it in a really weird mode or something. I don't know. When I restarted it, tend to fix it. But let's go talk a little bit more about the polygonal side of this stuff. So again, I'm just clicking and moving this guy, which is fine. If you see this X here, if I right click on that, I can, if I right click, not hold and right click, but right click, I have the option to subdivide the vertex, which gives me a little bit more resolution. If I right click, this should be allowing me to move it, but it's not, which is a little strange, but it is what it is. And then let me turn on use breakup here. So what use breakup's doing, essentially, it's doing just that. It's running a scale, like a fractal on top of everything. Okay, and unfortunately, you can't really see this too well in here. It's actually doing it though. But yeah, so this is a really nice way to get that. Oh, there it goes. It just popped in. To kind of get away from that, you know, just straight slanty, slopey thing. It looks a little weird. So I recommend doing that as well if you need to. And we can again push this. The further we push this, though, it's going to move it outside your initial boundary, which isn't necessarily bad. It's doing it. So just be aware that it is going to do that. Again, we'll adjust the fall off distance a little bit. And again, it's going from the top out. So if we want to change the scale of like if we want this to be more steep, we actually have to scale down the top and come back in and edit the shape properties, and then we just the fall off, right? Okay. Now I get like this really deformed looking weird. Maybe it's a mountain. I don't know. Now let's jump back over into our little node graph here. Okay. So what we now want to do is, most of these generators have this output on the ends of them. You can do a shape mask or you can do a height map. Either way, we'll put this into the mask here, or we can drop the height field in, and we'll get pretty much the exact similar thing. These function differently depending on the nodes that you're using, but for what we're going to be doing, just use the height field. And again, you can see what that did. Let me delete this wire here so you can see the difference. That's what the fractal was before. Then we put the wire in. Bam. Oh, delete that. It's going in the wrong way. There you go. And just so you guys know, if I right-click on this, I have the option to delete the wire or clear the wire route points. Like if you have a bunch of nodes going all over the place and you're like, this layout isn't working for me, you can just delete it off of there. So again, we're going to save this. That's the other thing. Save all the time. This is no different than any other 3D program that you'd use. Let's do another polygon here. And I'm just going to do something small here. Maybe it wraps like that. Oops, I screwed up. There it goes. Okay. Alright, now let's come into here. Let's adjust the shape properties. Let's get the height to go down. Okay, now you see that our main guy is staying where he's at, right? Just kind of nudge him in there. Maybe a little more. And you can see, like, you can actually get some really cool shapes with this. And again, I don't have anything drastically, crazy planned out for this. This is just for a demo, so I'm just playing with stuff right now. And we'll do one more on this side. And instead of clicking, we can drag and kind of get a little bit more of a precise look for it. There that goes. And let me just fall off there. That one's a little extreme. Pull that height down. Maybe way down. And we're going to nudge that right back into it. There we go. And we'll rotate that around. Cool. And that looks kind of what I'm thinking in terms of layout might be neat. So we'll come back over into here. Let's save again. Control S. Or you just, again, file save. Let's look at the purlin here. Now, so, maybe we want more of a kind of a billowy, mountainous look. So let's adjust the overall elevation. Let's push some of the steepness around here. Kind of chew this up. Let's eat a huge side of that away. Oops, I didn't commit it. Push the steepness around a little bit. Adjust that. Hit OK. Okay, and let's build this really quick just so you can see what it's going to look like. Alright, so I'm just looking through here. Pop back over here. Okay, so some things doesn't look too natural. It's a little weird here, and so is that. So let's see what's causing that. Let's go back in here. So this is advanced purlin that's actually doing it. And before we do that, let's get this into position so we can see what the heck's going on with it. There we go. Let's kind of move it out a little bit. And that mask is also limiting us pretty much on where we're going to be able to put some of this stuff. Well, what do we do now? So we have, let me build that. Shouldn't take too long. There it goes. We got some kind of cool shape going on over here, but we want a bunch of this stuff to be broken up and kind of, hit with the purlin because we're going to probably add a terrace onto it. So let's do that. Let's come over to our combiner. So we'll take this combiner here. I'm going to copy this purlin, Control C, Control V. I'm going to take the primary height output here. I'm going to put this right into here. Put this down here. Put that to there. And I'm going to now adjust this guy a little bit. Let's adjust the steepness a little bit, just because I want kind of a lower lying. We can change it a little bit, see what these kind of give us here. There we go, that looks kind of cool. Now let's look into this node here. Right now it's averaging. We don't really want it to average. We probably want to either add it. Let's see what the mult's going to give us. Mult will allow us to take a little bit down. Or we can just do a straight screen. See how the screen looks. The screen ain't going to do too hot. We'll just add it. Nope, mult. And let's play with the pull down the elevation center a little bit. Oh, not too much. It's kind of taking away our original forms here. Gives a little bit of breakup. Okay, and let's go back in and adjust some of the layout stuff as well, just because I like to get the tops to be a little bit more prominent. This is going to require us to go in and adjust the fall-offs, of course. And we'll adjust this curve. There we go. Accept. Close that down. Kind of adjust this a little bit just so we can really try and get that breakup. Accept that. That's cool. Okay, now let's jump back out and see how this is going to look for us. This might be still a little too busy. That's not too bad. It's pretty cool looking. Alright, come into there. There we go. Just push this down just a little bit. There we go. It's kind of cool looking. And I'll go through and build that out. That's good. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and add some terraces onto this, just so we can have some of the breakup of some of the terracing. It's pretty nice. So let's see what this can look like. Now, again, you got to be careful with this because the number of terraces is important because it'll shrink it down. I'm going to adjust the shaping just a little bit here. See what that looks like. Keep the terracing sharp. And again, we're building at a fairly low resolution in terms of the actual height field, so when we bump this up, you'll start to see the resolution change pretty drastically. Now let's go ahead and add a little bit of erosion onto this. Okay, so a couple different forms of erosion. We're just going to stick with our standard erosion. We can just click on that and it'll add it right in between that node, which is really useful, really nice. Go channeled erosion. Now, basically, all of these are going to deal, and you can look in the settings on the World Machine website. They're going to be dealing with various aspects of how much is going to be eroded off of the main structure. So I recommend playing around with these a little bit to see what you can get. Sometimes you'll get some really cool things out of it. Sometimes you will get some not so great things out of it. So you kind of have to play with it a little bit. All right, and we'll build that. See how that looks. Okay, got something, kind of cool starting to happen here. Let's actually, let's take this node, Control C, Control V, and we're just going to drag it right back in between this other node, so we have that going on. Okay, basically, if you stack the same node twice, it's essentially just multiplying it, like you're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So it'll call out these features, right? So if I really want to push this erosion even more so than what I'm doing right now, all I have to do is Control C, Control V, build, and there we go. And you can see we're starting to get some pretty extreme breakups here on this, which is really nice. Okay, so let me show you really quick how to increase the resolution on this guy. Just going to take this and slide it up to, let's do it, 2048. And what are we going to do? We're going to save before we execute this. I'm going to fire this guy off. This is going to take a little longer because, again, we've pretty much, times it by 2, so we've increased it like 4-fold in terms of the build time. So I'll pause this and I'll chime back in when it's done. So we're probably a little bit more intense than what I'd want. Let's actually see what happens when we step back through the node, see if we get a look that we like. That's not too bad. So that's, I guess, the first portion of the train. So let's dive in a little bit deeper now. We'll actually go to keep, I don't know, let me do a little live thinking here. Yeah, we'll nuke that node. Yeah, that's fine. What we're going to basically be doing now is we're going to be, let's call out some of these surfaces here. I want to be able to, let's say we want to, I don't know, terrace or add a new noise or build up some of these higher points or these angles a little differently. So how do we do that? Like, how do we start selecting individual portions of this mesh? Well, that's a good question. I'm going to show you. Haha, it's awkward as shit. So let's first look at the select by angle node under selector. Okay. Pull this height field and drag it into there. The first thing you notice is this is no longer 3D. And that's true because it's not. It's essentially just making a mask off the height field. Okay, so this is, if you were to imagine like essentially a normal map, we're essentially rotating the light around the normal map to kind of create kind of a selection heading. This is really useful, especially if you need to output these maps to say, I don't know, if you want to have stone or something, like stone's a good example, facing a certain direction on the rock face, right? Because you got a bunch of wind erosion, maybe it's pushed all the sand that would be on the rocks off. That's only typically heading in one direction. So let's see what that looks like. Use a oops. Put that there for right now. Look at this overlay view here. Oops. Jump back out of it. Now we're going to take this angle, put that there, put this right here. Okay, and I'm gonna have to rebuild this guy again because we've added these new nodes, but they weren't like actually like super like intensive nodes. So you can see here, there's your rock faces, these gray guys. Okay. Now again, that's not, I mean, for texturing, that's kind of cool. We probably wouldn't want these kind of rock faces to erode like they have been. Okay. So there's some things that we can do if we decide that we want to go through this. We can basically, we're going to need to come under, oh, where is it? I need an inverter here. converters, generators. Sorry, I'm just going to go through and try and find this really quick. It's under scalar inverter. Yay. Okay. So we have the slope. We have this guy coming into here. What I basically want to do is I want to be able to take... Oh, that's a parameter output, though. Alright, it should be under here. Sorry, I didn't want a scalar. I want a filler inverter. Let's see if I can not blur. Ah, there it is. There we go. So I want to take what's actually happening here. I want to invert it. Okay, and then I want to run this out as the mask. Oop. It's not going to let me do that because it's going to give me a device feedback. Well, I bet you I can run it off of this. Yeah, it's not going to give us the erosion, but that's okay. Yeah, that way it won't create a dependency feedback. So I just inverted. I basically selected the slope before I did the erosion. Okay, I know these wires are getting a little weird looking. It'll make sense though. And we're going to build. Okay. And we still have our output here, so you guys can see the difference here in just a second. I'm going to pause it because the erosion is typically what's going to take a long time in my experience with this guy. It's the erosion that really can take your, that can really slow things down. So I'll pause this guy and we'll see what it looks like when it comes down. Come back in here. Alright, sorry, I was reading some stuff on the side there. Okay, so we're going to come back in here. We'll take this inverter here. And let's actually, let me clean this up just a little bit so we can see what the hell we're working on, because it's going to start to get a little messy here. Move that all over. And actually, I'll just delete these guys out just because they're just sitting there not doing anything. Okay. So we got the select thing here. Okay, so now what I want to do here is on this, I want to do another, well, do I want to do erosion? I guess I could do an erosion, or I could do a noise. Let's see what a thermal erosion is going to look like, though. So I'm going to take this existing height field. I'm going to bypass the inverter. Click that. I'm going to bypass the inverter that we previously used. Okay. So this is only going to be affecting the, probably not even going to be able to see it that well in this view. Should be only really affecting, yeah, you can see a little bit, that unmasked area. Here, I'm really going to push this just so we can kind of see the extremities of it, the extremeness. Something like that. Something like that. Okay. And then we're going to take the output, we're going to combine it back together. Okay? Put that there. And we're just going to put that back there. Okay? I know this seems a little abstract, but if you're walking through it and you're talking yourself through it kind of like I'm doing, it's honestly not that bad. Um, And you know what? Let me just see if this is going to help it. I'm just going to try and say, hey, put this combiner only where the mask is. So I can just add it right on top. Yep. Just average it out. So there's a little bit of something there. Okay. I don't think it's causing too many spikies or anything. Alright, and then we'll see what that looks like. Alright, let's take a quick peek at this guy. It's pretty cool. You know, we need to still add probably some larger form breakup. Maybe not. Actually, you know what? I'm going to say no. We're not because, well, maybe a little bit. I don't know. We'll play around with it some more. But this is kind of where it's heading. And again, we've only been really doing this for about half hour or so, even if not even that. And we're just playing. Okay, like this is kind of one of the big powerhouses behind this software is with very little work you can get a lot, and it looks fairly convincing. I mean, obviously there's some stuff here that we need to work on, but for the most part, especially if this thing's in a Vista, you're probably going to be pretty good. Or if you're going to do what I like to do, where I like to sculpt on top of this stuff, this is a pretty decent base to start from. So we'll add a couple little bit more modifications in between some of these slopes here, and I'll show you guys the slope and height generators next, and we'll just keep playing with it. Alright, let's go in and grab one of our purlins here, and again, obviously you guys can use this to your heart's content, these container nodes. I don't really use them just because I'm a slob. So just keep that in mind. I admit it. It's okay. So we'll take this one and put this down here now. Oop. Right down here, put that back. Move this guy up. Let's go into here by itself. And yeah, let's drop it down to the terraced. And then we'll play a bit with the steepness. Okay, I essentially want some noise on this. Okay, now again, we have our angle here, and we're going to keep playing on this, messing around with this angle a little bit. Okay. So take that combiner, put that here. Again, now what I want to do differently on this is I want to add under where was it? Under filter, I want to blur the heck out of this thing. So let's find the blur, bias, gain, not the expander. We're going to blur. The reason why I want to blur is, you can't see it now because I've already started playing around with this thing a little bit. Oop. Let me get back, let me select the main chain here. And if I would have actually been paying a little bit more attention, I probably would have done this at the start. Where are you? Here we are. Oh, where did that go? Where did my node go? Did I delete something? Got that there. Got our angle. Combiner. That's there. That's there. Cancel. Actually, yeah, it did mess up. That's okay though. Basically, up there's some of the slope stuff. You can see it a little bit. I just moved the light around. I'm like, why does it look so weird? That feels better. Basically, I want to add some noise onto some of this, but the reason why I want to blur it is because these cavities are getting a little, for lack of a better word. Not that it really matters. I probably should have blurred it further on in the chain, but you can do that. Especially, it might be a good idea if you're going to be using a lot of these masking and inversing things, because you'll start to get really harsh segments in between the blurs and the masks, so you might want to consider doing that. Anywho, so what I want to do is I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to blur it. Again, you can see it right there. It's a Gaussian, right? Like, and I believe there's other versions of it. But Gaussian, we'll just stick with Gaussian. And I'm actually going to pipe that into here. Okay. And let's just adjust. Might be a little too blurry. On a little bit, but not too much. Just enough to break up the edges a little bit. And I bet you don't know what we're going to do here. We're going to use another combiner. Combine. By your powers combined, I am making height terrain. Yeah, that's pretty fucking nerdy if I ever heard that. It's true. Okay, now, again, what we got to do, we got to put the mask back in, though, so we can say, hey, don't worry about everything else around it. Just look at the this section here. Okay, now we blurred it, so I'm not too worried about it, but play around a little bit with some of that as well. And again, this is just going to add just a little bit of extra. Let me see. I'm trying to figure out the best way to. Oh yeah, put that into here. It's just going to give us a little extra breakup on top of that. I'm going to save this and we'll build. You can see the workflow is pretty standard, right? Save, build, save, build, save, build, save, build, save, build. Now again, we're at a 2K map, okay? We'll talk, well this is building, I'll just talk a little bit about this. The larger your maps go, inside a world machine, obviously, the more terrain detail you have. However, there are things such as a very complex device layout. This thing's starting to get complex. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 different things that are kind of going through the chain and it's building, and there's various degrees of complexity between each of those. The larger that terrain map resolution is, the longer this is going to take. This is a 2K. Okay, typically when I author this stuff for a game or if I'm doing, client work for CGI or something like that, I'll author it at a 4K. I strongly caution you to try not to go above 4K, especially if you're doing erosions on a lot of landscapes. Depending on how complex the device is, you can have a device that'll take you a day and a half to actually process through. And I'm not exaggerating on that. I had a device that I was building just the other day. I ended up canceling it. It took over 8 hours to go through and process, right? And that's just not okay. And the jump is exponential, right? You'll go between 2K to 4K. 4K maybe takes 20, 30 minutes. You walk away, have some coffee, go work out, do something like that. Come back, it's pretty much done. In 8K, it's exponential. It's huge. It's a lot of surface area. And again, if you can kind of remember back to what we were talking about earlier, I typically use World Machine as kind of more of a macro thing anyway. I'm not using this for the micro detailing, at least on a terrain like this. We're going to cover probably actually next how to do low-lying terrain, and that's a little bit different. Not by much. In fact, World Machine really isn't the best for that. Vue's really good for doing it. In fact, Vue's probably one of the better programs to use for it. Vue is made by Eon Software, and a lot of that is just because of how good their fractals are. Vue itself is a very wonky, weird program, and it's kind of unstable. But if anything, the fractal generation in it is pretty solid. But what we'll end up doing after we pump this out and we get some maps, I'll show you how to do the exporting of the maps for this as well. We'll focus on some low-lying terrain, and particularly stuff that has objects in it. So like if you have stones or something placed or a building placed, we'll show you how to erode that stuff as well. And that'll be pretty fun. But that's a whole long way of me saying don't go crazy big inside of this with World Machine. Again, I've been talking for probably about 3 to 4 minutes just on about not going crazy big, and it still hasn't finished the thermal weathering device. There's the erosion stuff. The natural selectors tend to take the longest. Now, if you're using some stuff from GeoGlyph, which I'll show you guys at the very end, it's an add-on to World Machine. It's really, really robust, and it's a really nice plugin for World Machine. Then you can do some pretty cool things with that as well. But they have some pretty complex devices in there as well that can kind of crush your station if you're not careful. And just we'll talk a little bit about the device chain as well, like what builds and what doesn't build. You'll see here it says current, or it'll say unbuilt or built. Current means it's already been done. Nothing's changed in the chain to make it recalculate anything. So from that standpoint, it's really smart. If it doesn't need to do the work, it's not going to do it. But be warned, if you're going through and doing like minute changes on your erosions and that kind of stuff, I'd caution you on it because it's going to take quite a bit of a long time. World Machine is for your broad shapes. It's for your big stuff. I mean, at least that's how I use it. I'm sure some people might disagree with me on this, but it's for your broad shapes. It's for getting the flow maps out. It's for getting the erosion maps. It's for getting the height fields out, so you can kind of go in and sculpt it. Yeah, I just caution you guys about trying to go crazy high res with this, unless time isn't an issue for you. If time isn't an issue for you, put it in an 8K map and walk away for 2 or 3 days, and maybe it'll be done. It'll be really detailed, I can tell you that. It's just, I don't know if you want to wait 2 or 3 days to, work. It's probably not great. Alright, well, I'm going to let this pause, and then when it's done, I'll chime back in, and we'll chat some more. Alright, then let's look at the device. Probably not so great. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna. Yeah, we'll go back. That doesn't look too great. Oh well. Take that out. Take that out. And we'll take that out. And that should be okay for the most part. Yeah. Alright, let's make sure the combiner's there, it's still working. Let me double check on the overlay there. Oh, it's going to need to be rebuilt, but the faces are all there. Okay, the next thing since that little test didn't work, that's okay. Let's talk about getting this thing actually out. Because this is where most of you are probably like, well, this is fun and dandy, and that's cool. You're making nice little shapes in this program. How can I actually use this? Like, what the hell is the point of actually using this thing? Well, let's show you. First things first, we're going to go to the output. Let's look at the height map output. So we're going to pull that guy. And let's just drag it into here. Double click on this node. We want high precision 16-bit output. There's also a raw floating point. I don't believe this is an EXR. Let's find out. I don't think it is though. Yeah, you know what? Actually, we'll just use a TIFF because we're going to take this into ZBrush anyway. So we're going to set this here. We're going to go to Demo. Demo A. Hit OK. Alright. That's there, that's there. And we're going to write output to disk. It's going to tell you the world must be built before you can export your terrain. Would you like to do so now? Of course. So we're going to build. Okay. And let's open up Photoshop really quick. We'll take a look at the terrain here. Ignore profile. Now, we can export raw meshes, and I will show you how to do that as well. Some of you guys will probably find some use for that. Oh, little other World Machine project I was working on. Close you down. Close you down. No. Double click that. Thank you. Open up. Okay, so this is going to output a window. Let's look at the layers here. Layers are over on this side of the screen. Drop an exposure node onto this. This is going to output a full floating point map. Okay, means we have all the, well, not all, we have the majority of the height information in here. It also means that we could come into ZBrush, Pixologic, ZBrush R6. Let that load. We are going to hide that. Grab a new polytrain. And again, since World Machine is displacing everything off of a flat plane, this is going to work totally fine. Just divide this up. Probably around 1 million or so. Let's import the alpha. Demo A. Okay, now sometimes, so it actually imported it, but you can't actually see it. So let's figure out why that is. Come back into here. Image mode. Sure it's at grayscale, 16-bit. Let me find my Windows layers here. Window layers. The height map export is a little wonky out of World Machine, and the ZBrush doesn't honestly handle it the best way either. So we'll just take this. None. Okay, that's fine. And if this doesn't work, I'll show you how to check to see what ZBrush uses for its height inputs in just a second. See if this works. There it goes. Yeah, so I just resave it when I take it out of Photoshop. I don't know exactly why it doesn't just take it directly from World Machine, but it is what it is. So there we go. Let's turn on mode. Turn on displace on. Up. So obviously, we've got to create a texture here. Something like that's fine. Come back into the displacement. And we'll put that at 1. This thing should probably explode. Oh no, there it goes. Okay, so there's your terrain. Apply displacement, we'll turn the mode off. Okay. And there's your terrain. Now, let's go ahead and hit perspective here. We can see a little bit. The next thing that we probably need to do is going in and trying to sculpt on something like this is not something I would necessarily recommend. Not because you can't. Obviously, the terrain, the topology is fine. It's tessellated quad. Should be totally fine. Let me change this draw angle as well to something a little bit more reasonable. Right here. There we go. And let me also, like, we can come in here as well, since we have this ability, is we can just take this and, oops, crash ZBrush. Shouldn't have done that. Wasn't that dense. That's okay. See how it saved it. Question is, did you save it? And no, you did not. Epic fail. Epic fail ZBrush. That's okay. We'll do it again. Make polymesh. Convert that to gray. Basic material, geometry, turn off smooth. We'll divide that guy up. Take the alpha. We'll import the alpha. Here we go. There's that. Displacement map. Import. There's that. It's going to ask for a texture map as well, so let's make sure we give it that. And we know, let's actually put it at 0.7. And we'll just apply it. Okay, that way it's just not so high. And then I'm going to save this one so we don't have to deal with it again. Okay. Now, the reason why I was saying to you guys, just don't go and start sculpting on this is because what makes this work really well is the fact that the trim smooth, the terrain and everything takes into account all of these slope channels and like the height variations, or I can go in and just start smacking some of this down, but I don't really have a good context onto, you know, what these angles are. And maybe that's okay. I mean, depending on what you're doing, if you just need to just come in here really fast, you know, and, you know, just beat some of these terrains, it's totally fine. If you want more control, though, we're going to need to generate more masks, right? And so how do we do that? As I'm suddenly starting to have a little bit of fun just smacking the terrain around a little bit. Again, this is why I kind of recommend to people not to spend too much time trying to get all these slope and elevation stuff 100% correct, because you're going to come in and paint on it anyway. Anyway, let's go back into World Machine, and let's start pulling out some of the more useful stuff as bitmap outputs. Okay, so what I want is I want to get this guy, set this here. And under these erosions, the flow maps are really, really useful. The flow map is, well, exactly what it sounds like. This is flow. It literally will write whoa. Device built. That's not right. That's not right. Oh, here, we'll put it through that one. Oh, wait. Did I have it going into the wrong one? Alpha input. Right. No output buffer contents. Oh, wait. Specify. There's that. Okay. Save. Okay. It shouldn't matter. We have that coming out to here. We have the alpha input coming out to here. Come on. No build. Oh. Yeah, so, sorry. Come over here under converter, grab this colorizer, and actually convert it into a color. I was like, wait, I thought there was a point where I could select the color. There is. This is where you select your colors as well. Black and whites work really well. That's the first one that you get, the first option. But once you actually jump off of it, you can't get it back. I don't know why, because it's showing that it's there, so you have to delete it if you want to get back to black and white. It's kind of wonky, but whatever. And again, we can control the hue saturation. You can adjust how everything's spaced, and this is all based off the height map, so it's a straight gradation. And we'll write that. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Oh, wait. I thought I connected this in. I didn't. I need to specify the RGB output. Sorry. Yeah, there you go. Now it should hopefully work. Yay. Okay. That took 20 damn minutes. Jesus. Anyway, let's go back into here. Okay, so there's the TIFF, there's the flow map. Now again, so this is actually just dealing with the height map, the straight height map. So let's pull, sorry, I didn't pull it in the flow. There we go. We'll do that. That looks better. There's the height map. Let me reopen this sucker, and then it should look a little different. Update. So there's your flow map. Okay. This is the actual channel flow. Like, this is what it's doing. Like, this is spitting out the channel erosion. Let's select some slopes. Let's get some actual like height or some angle stuff going through here. And we'll actually be looking at the primary output for this as well, just to grab that. And again, this is going to select everything based off of, well, just that. Slope. So this will be good. Let's get like a really high angled on that. Copy that, Control V. Actually, we want to grab both, just in case we want to change the color. Oop. Got those. Connect that. Yeah. Take that. Take that. I mean, we don't need to keep making these nodes. We can piggyback them all through each other, but it's nice just to see them. Take that into there. Oop. And let's do slope. Okay. Let's look at the slope. Okay. And all of these are going to be really useful for generating masks. So let's actually just look at the, this is a BMP, so let's see how ZBrush takes it. Again, we'll just save that. So let's import this as an alpha. Okay. And okay, so it actually just grabbed, I don't know if you can see it, grabbed the mask by the alpha. And you can see here, it's only affecting the slopes, right? Okay. And we can sharpen this guy too, just so we can see it a little bit clearer here, which we probably would like to do anyway. Sharpen that, sharpen that, sharpen that, sharpen that. So we're really only getting, and it's kind of hard to see it here for you guys. I hope you guys can see it. Let's see if I can change the material. Maybe that'll help. Yeah, so we're really only getting this stuff, right? Which this is really useful for, because if we suddenly are like, okay, this is a little too smooth or whatever, we can either hit it with a crack alpha or something like that we've, gone in and made, or we can go in under not that surface. Okay, and again, we'll go to the angle here. We'll do 3D, and we'll just adjust the scale here. Play around with this a little bit. I'm gonna go big. Okay. And let's just scale it so it looks like it's going to go kind of sliding down. There we go. Okay, now again, if you've taken my other classes, you've probably heard me rant about this. Mask by noise. Do not hit the other button. Don't apply it. It'll explode. Don't do it. Don't know why, but it will. So just don't do it. And turn that off. Now let's just drag out some of the, see a little bit of the noisiness in there? Should be pretty rad. Okay, noise, mask by noise, mask by noise. And that'll just, if we keep hitting that, it'll like overly sharpen it, right? Like it's like just keeps over hitting it. And again, be careful, like we got some weirdness here, but we could sculpt that back out. Okay. So still got some weirdness there, but you get the idea. And actually, it doesn't look quite right to me. Let's play around with this just a little bit more. Just do something like this. And we'll adjust the scaling there. And let's take the strength and put that closer to 0. Let's apply that to the mesh. Yep, went the wrong way with it too. Let's take this and go up. apply to mesh. Oh, a little too intense there. And masking, let's blur this guy a little bit. Alright. I think it's really more on the surface. I think the surface is just going to be a little too intense. Oh well, we'll just mask by it. Yeah, you can see it happening right there. And let's get a little harsher of an alpha. Alpha 06 will do. This is nice because it'll give us a little bit of edge breakup. Harshness on the edge there. Right, we just kind of pull that right on out. Okay. And again, obviously, we'd spend more time on this if we were doing this in a production, but yeah. Okay. Let's go back through and we can hit it. In fact, we can even use... I mean, this isn't going to look quite right. It's just going to get noisy, but let's see if we can get something nice off of it. Because we will end up using alphas that we make inside of WorldMachine for other things, right? That's also a really common thing, is to just spit that out as just an alpha that you'd use. That isn't going to really look great for what we need. Okay, that's fine. And let's just hit this. Oop. A couple different ways. There we go. And it's, at least for me when I'm doing these, it's a lot about the kind of just hitting the smooth versus rigid shapes, and taking out, it's actually a lot of taking out of some of the more WorldMachine kind of stuff, right? Some of it's great, like some of the more noisier shapes, but you want to give the eyes some areas to rest. And that'll also, you're also going to get a bunch of detailing from your actual flow maps and your color maps. So we should also probably add that in too, so you guys can see the color maps as well. Because I think texturing this stuff is always a little tricky sometimes for everyone, right? Like, it's not black and white. And a lot of times you'd be surprised, especially it depends on what you're using this stuff for, right? If you're going to be walking across a surface like this, you're going to be doing a heck of a lot more than this. This is your macro detail, essentially, if you were to, have this as a train in a game, right? This isn't the micro detail, and obviously we're not doing this for a game, we're not really focusing on gameplay stuff, but if we were doing this for a game, we would probably, in the shape editor stuff that we did earlier, did WorldMachine die? No, it didn't. Okay, please don't crash ZBrush. Back in this layout generator, we would probably been paying attention to the actual layout that we would need for the character, or for the gameplay stuff. But a lot of times nowadays, this stuff is done in engine anyway, so this is more for skybox stuff anyway. And again, we're just gonna start painting some of this stuff out. And again, when I'm doing this, I'm kind of trying to think of like what looks convincing, but like there's obviously so much detail in the sucker that it's like, okay, we need to actually have some areas where the eye can breathe. So you're actually at least for me, I spend a lot more time kind of going through and pulling out a lot of this detail, and that's really all that I'm doing right now, is I'm going through and I'm saying, okay, this is cool, but probably needs to go. The other thing that really helps for these is getting really good solid insert brushes. I think we'll talk a little bit about that as well. For this is creating some insert brushes to create these undercuts. Because sculpting these is okay, but it doesn't really give it the kind of justice that it needs when doing these undercuts. These undercuts work really well, especially if you have geometry that you're using to push and pull this stuff out. And Rayfire works really well for doing that. And before you think I'm actually going to sit here and Rayfire a mountain, I'm not going to. I'm going to use other things, smaller things, to kind of pull it apart. And I'll just kind of And again, you notice this thing, I'm imagining this thing to be in a skybox, right? So I'm looking at this thing. I'm not in here like this, right? I don't care that the fact that that's pixelated. I know that the resolution isn't crazy high. I'm just working in steps. This isn't, I mean, you're kind of just calling out forms on the. It's also a really good idea to have some reference images up when you're doing this. I'm just kind of doing this live as I'm talking to you about it, so it's not crazy 100% to what I should be doing, but just know if you're doing this for your personal work or whatever, or you're doing this for, your job, get some references out, because you're also going to pick up some interesting things in terms of texturing, right? Most of the time, one of the things I see that's a little harsher on terrains and stuff is it's noisy. People put all this, and it makes sense, right? There's rocks and there's all these other things, so they put all that in the texture, and well, that realistically, conceptually, that makes a ton of sense. It's there. It should probably be seen. Visually, it's super overwhelming, right? So one of the things that I tend to do is I tend to pull a lot of that stuff out. I tend to actually use more flat colors when I do terrain texturing. Let me just save this. Let's jump back into here. Got a bunch of maps out. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to save that. No, don't do that. All right. Let's get some mountaintop peaks in here really quick. Just, super simple stuff here. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time doing this. I really just want, that's a radial grade, by the way. I really just want some peaks in here. Come here. Did you select the damn thing? Jesus. Oh, World Machine, I love you. Alright, let's play around with the radial grade a bit more. Yeah, that looks great. Okay. I just want something that has kind of this general shape, and then I'm going to go back in. Adjust the steepness back down to kind of where it was. And guess what? We're going to do a combiner again. And this is what I'll use to throw the noise over everything, the purlin over everything, is that combiner, right? Okay. Okay. It's pretty cool looking. And maybe we will probably go just a cone. Maybe that'll look a little better. Yeah, looks a little better. And we'll take this and we'll do this. And we'll apply that back into here. And we're going to take the sharp ridges. Something like that. Okay, let's build this guy out. Let's look at him again. Not anything too crazy. I want this general shape because I'm gonna, I might beat it up a little bit more with pulling the centers down and stuff, and kind of increasing the overall steepness. Let's send the octaves through the roof here. Leave it down to 0. It's fine. Okay, and we'll just come into here, and let's just increase this to a 1024. I really just want this as a map. I'm really just going to use this as a a stamp. Okay. And let's take this guy. Let's make sure he's set at the correct resolution, 1024. Fire! Shouldn't take too long. And then we'll jump back into here. Okay, that's pretty cool. Not anything too crazy, but you know, that's fine. And what we'll do now is we'll come back down into here, and we'll do our converter, our not our light map maker, but our we'll do actually we'll just need the height output. Let's just do that and call it good. Take that, put that into the height output. Oop. So every time World Machine is built, let's give that a TIFF. Let's set the output top. Okay, and write output to disk. Yes. Cool. And again, remember, we got to come back into Photoshop here. Just because of the TIFF conversion, not too great, but that's okay. Super easy to deal with. Just file, save as TIFF. Yeah, that's fine. Yep. Okay, cool. And again, constantly be saving this inside of ZBrush. And again, our resolution is not high right now. We are fairly low resolution, which is good. We want to keep it that way. As much as we can, I should say. It just depends on what you're doing. I guess we could have even used the underlying terrain too. Under alpha, let's come under here, alpha. Come under modify, turn on radial fade. Okay, and let's increase this so it's a lot higher in terms of its intensity. Now again, this is going to be what's the best way that I want to do this, because I just want this to be a straight ortho. Let's try this. I don't know how well this is going to work, but let's try projection master here. You know, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Most of what I do is just trial and error, right? I'm not claiming that I know all there is to know about this stuff. I'm just playing around with it. And then we'll scale that sucker up somewhere like around there. This might be too intense, so let's just see. Yeah, it's too intense. Okay. Gives a cool little peak there, but I don't want it to do that. Sometimes I'll take this onto a separate polyplane as well, just so I can rough out my idea. I'm like, oh, that's what it's going to do. Okay, well, that's obviously not what I want. It's what I told it to do, and that is incorrect. So let's modify this alpha a little bit inside of ZBrush here. So I'm going to pull that sucker down. Let's see how that looks. And we can move this. You'll just leave it. We'll grab dock on that. Come back into our primary sculpt here. Now, and again, if you want to, you can be using layers on this, and I would recommend if you're going to do what I'm doing right now, you'd come into here, and you probably actually just want to store a morph target, right? So you can actually, you know, play with this a little bit. That's very strange looking. Let's see here. Maybe I can get creative here. Start using separate pieces. Sometimes you'll need to do that, right? Sometimes, Jesus, that's so weird. Why is it doing that? That's okay. Oh, that's another reason why I wasn't going straight down. Let's take that, and then I'm going to move this. See what this looks like. Let's kind of widen it out just a little bit. Cool. It's not great, but it's not bad. Okay, and we'll see here. I can use this as maybe as a mesh insert. Do I want to do that though? Let's see. Let's just append it. Append. I'll do this occasionally, like if I'm trying to rough out a form and I'm like, I don't really know what I want this thing to look like. I don't really trust exactly what I'm doing. Like, you know, I'm still not 100% on it. Yeah, we got all that, right? So I want to make sure I come into here under geometry. We're going to modify this, and we're going to delete hidden, delete lower, delete hidden. Okay, and that pretty much says, hey, this is all there is. This is what I just did was actually really destructive. You can't go back and fix that, right? You gotta either save and restart, or use a new mesh. I'm off, my perspective is off right now. Just to remind you of that, I realized a little bit too late. That's the slope. Let's import the flow map as well. Just see if I can flow. And again, you're going to want to save this. We're dealing with a lot of maps right now, okay? And ZBrush, love it, doesn't handle this stuff that well, especially when it starts to get a little heavier. Whoa, mother of God. Actually, you know what? The flow map will probably work best as an alpha instead of trying to sculpt with it. Oh, there we go. At least give me some indication of, yeah, there's not enough resolution in that guy anyway. Yeah, we can come down here if we want to do it all to everything. Deflate it a little bit. Just enough to give a little bit of detail. Yeah, it looks like hell. Let's just delete it. But again, that's kind of what I'll end up doing, right? Is I'll start shoving other meshes into the surfaces to kind of help build it out. I'm going to spend a little bit of time still sculpting on this, though, just so we can have something nice to rip some of these maps and stuff off of. And I'll also show you guys, we'll open up that old device as well. Open. Let's get this device here. It's the date today. There you go. I'm going to spit out a color map out of that eventually, so I just want to have it open. Yep. Probably should have put some terraces on this too, that would have been sweet. Not you. What do I want to do with this? Actually, let's take this up just a little higher, just because I can kind of start crisping some of this stuff out. I'm just kind of trying to get more of, and I know this brush isn't giving me straight edges. I don't really want it to. The trim smooth borders is just grabbing onto that first point that I click, and I'm just raking it across so I can get these nice crevasses and stuff. Let's just keep pushing this around just a little bit. Here we go. Here we go. Kind of trim some of that up. Now again, I've modified this topology a little bit, so the color and flow maps I'm going to pull aren't going to be one-to-one with this, which honestly I'm not too worried about. It's a mountain. You probably won't be able to tell it anyway. But here we go. In some areas, like, the flow maps are great, right? But in some areas you don't want them, right? Like, so, you know, I don't know. I'm a big fan of kind of using as many tools as I can to try and get what I want. And I've found that the combination of these work really well. There's a guy I worked with at Blizzard for a while. His name is Brian LaFrance. He's super fucking talented map painter, and was a wonder with World Machine. He's actually one of the guys who got me started on playing around with it. And he does some crazy cool stuff with that. Same with Oliver. Not Oliver. Oliver. Sorry. Same with the. Oh gosh, hold on. Sorry, ADD is kicking in. I just need to hit this. Okay. Same with the map painting soup over at 343. He's super talented photographer, and incidentally, the guy is also. I mean, you'd look at his work, you think he's a damn geologist, right? Like, he's just ludicrously good. The skyboxes in Halo are fantastic. Him and a guy by the name of Ryan Watkins did some really awesome stuff on that, and they were huge users of World Machine. So it's definitely a very heavily used piece of software, you know? And why shouldn't it be, right? It works really well and allows you to get in there and start doing what you need to do. Kind of create some cool stuff. Now let's really quickly jump back into perspective here. And I do want to, there's something else that I do want to talk briefly about. We'll take this, once we start texturing this and getting this into like Max or whatever, we'll talk more about this. But let's talk a little bit about lighting really quick. Your shadows and forms are what sell these objects, alright? You go through and you look at any huge ass photo of a mountain, they have fantastic shadows. This is one of the things that I do not like about ZBrush, is the fact that I can't get real-time shadows. You can get them in Mudbox, which is nice. I hate Mudbox in general, but that is a nice feature of it. But again, when you're doing this, my big recommendation to you is to look at your shadows as you're sculpting this. You're not just painting, or you're not just sculpting off geometry, right? You are actively paying attention to your shadows and to your general forms, and that a lot of that is going to come from the lighting, right? The way this thing is represented will change pretty drastically depending on what you do with your lighting. So shadows help. Shadows are your friend. Okay, so we'll just save this guy out for right now. Maybe let's get a little bit of a better silhouette at the top. Just want something, I mean, this is not bad. It kind of looks like something out of like Colorado or something like that. Kind of, actually, you know what, this looks freaking weird. Not that you can't have weird stuff, because nice thing about these kind of landscapes is pretty much, I wouldn't say pretty much, but there's a lot of really strange things that erosion does, like the balancing stones and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. You get them a lot in Utah. It's a state in the U.S. that absolutely gorgeous. Just gonna fix this shit. If something like this happens, just inflate it, smooth it out, and come back in and hit it with a trim brush. Yeah, especially if the shapes get a little overlappy. It's a little weird, you know. There we go. Cool. Awesome. There we go. Okay, so now, to start this next part, I want to try and get you, hopefully you guys thinking in the mindset of this as being a process, right? We have our geometry layer Then we're going to have our color layer, and then we might add some noise on top of that. Like, you do not need to go in and physically make every single erosion, every single rock that would be on one of these surfaces. In fact, I kind of ask you not to do that as much as you can. Number of reasons. Primarily, you're going to go nuts. No, and it'll never look right. Most of what sells a lot of the detail on these objects is something. It's like implied detail, right? When you look at a photo, like when we look at a photo of, like, say, the Grand Canyon, we know that this is rock, right? We know that there's rocks and stones here, but even zoomed in, I mean, you see there's some hits here of little pebbles and stones and stuff, but you're not actually building out too much of the actual textural detail. It's more color detail that's implied here. And for landscapes, it's kind of the same thing that I think helps people out a lot, is it's much more color detail than it is so much noisy textural detail, okay? And you will see more of that as we go along, but it's actually good for you guys to see that, because you can see I haven't lost my damn mind. I'm not too far off from that general look. Oh, thank you, ZBrush. Now you decide to save. But the point being is, you don't need to add like 20 9K maps into your surface. That's absolutely ridiculous. There's no need to do that. You can do a lot by kind of implying it. It's like the old Star Wars map paintings, right? Some of those were like the best in the world, right? And there's images and stuff you can find online. There's like photos of like Endor, like for the all the trees and stuff. They zoom into it and they're just brush strokes, man. Like they're nothing. Same thing for this. You kind of just need to fool the viewer, right? And that's kind of what we're doing here, is we're just fooling the viewer. I'm gonna grab another alpha here. It's pretty cool too. We didn't even need World Machine. We could just use ZBrush the entire time. Look at that. Done. Alright. ZBrush can't erode, though. I wish it did. That'd be sweet. Radial fade. Radial fade. Enhance. So I just want to get some of this low-lying stuff on here. Again, we can use all of our flow maps and that kind of stuff on top of this as well. But I just want to get, this is, again, there's certain detail and stuff that, hey, we could have added that inside of World Machine. Do we need to? Probably not. And just for the shits and giggles of it, and just because I absolutely adore the Quixel guys, I'm going to show you guys how to make some crack maps as well, off of using some of their software as well. I love that phrase, shits and giggles. And the nice thing about doing these tutorials is I can say whatever I want. Like, it's mine. It's pretty cool. Well, not whatever I want. I'm just kidding. It's terrible. Here we go. It's one of the funny things about doing these kind of demos is I never have time to work in Slayer, or like in heavy metal, because I'm talking the entire time. Some of you guys are like, thank God. There's a couple of you I know love Slayer. Yeah. Apparently they're working on a new album, which, I mean, they've been, it's been rumored that they've been working on one for a while, so hopefully it comes out. Oh, the internet. Love the internet. Treasure trove of rumors. Alright, so I'm going to save this. And again, you can already see here, like, we're not in a bad spot, right? I'm going to just spit out one of these devices really quick. I just want to get the colors out just so you can see this. I'm just going to actually take the primary output here. And let's get, like, some kind of cool, like, canyon thing going here. And you can obviously see that I'm, totally doing my due diligence by, going in and tweaking everything. I'm not. I'm just using their presets, which is whatever. Do what you got to do. Color. I want to try and name these so I can give you guys these as well for picking up the class. By the way, thank you guys for picking up the classes. Holy hell, how rude of me. I didn't even say that. Like, seriously, like, way badass of you guys for doing that. super cool, and I'm hoping it's helping a lot of people. Like, and if it's not, and you're like, dude, you're kind of an idiot, let me know. I'll stop doing them. Or if there's more stuff that you want to see, like, this is really just an intro class for the World Machine stuff. Like, we can do pretty crazy things with this. If there's more of demand for it, let's talk about it. I think, well, I'll make the announcement now, but it won't. I probably won't have it out until January. But I'm gonna do kind of my own little mentoring mini class thing too. So if some of you guys are interested in that, I've had some emails about it, so I might as well consider, doing it. Besides that, it'll help me get to know you guys better and all that kind of jazz. It'll probably be like a 5-week thing, and we'll just meet every Saturday, do some art, give you guys some videos, and it'll kind of be catered more towards what each person wants. That's the idea that I'm toying around with, instead of just, here's how to build a rock. Go forth, kind of like trying to figure out what the hell you guys want to do and what you want to work with and what you really want to dive into, because really at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. All right, I'm going to let this build out. It's going to spit out the color map, and then we'll jump back into ZBrush. We'll look at that. Then we're going to go into Quixel, which is the, you'll see that, and we're going to have some fun with that. And we'll wrap up the little mountain section here pretty quickly.